Well, good morning and welcome to Coach's Corner on this very special Saturday morning. It is Hall of Fame weekend, and we're going to be talking to our Bronco Athletic Hall of Famers here in about 6 or 7 minutes. But let's quick run down the sports from last night as we do at the start of every show. Let's start with the high school sports. Nothing going on locally last night, but a couple games going on in the area. In baseball, Duluth-Denfeld 7-3 over Grand Rapids. Proctor shuts out Rush City 11-0. In softball, Hermantown 9, Duluth East 3, Silver Bay 13-3 over Two Harbors in 5 innings. Evelyn Gilbert beats Nashwauk-Keewatin 15-8, and then Nashwauk-Keewatin over Deer River 15-3. Minnesota Twins last night, they had quite the exciting game. Did not get a chance to watch any of it, but the Twins got an 8th inning grand slam from Eddie Rosario to tie the game at 6. Took the lead in the top of the 7th on a Max Kepler home run, but Tampa Bay ties it in the bottom of the 9th and then wins it in the bottom of the 10th as they win by a score of 8-7 over the Minnesota Twins. Brian Dozier and Max Kepler each had a pair of hits for the Minnesota Twins, and they play Tampa Bay today in Game 2 of their 3-game series. That game starts at 5:10 on K104, pregame at 4:40. Minnesota Wild last night absolutely laid an egg. I just don't know how else to say it other than that. They ended their season on a sour note. It is going to be a long off season as they lose to the Winnipeg Jets by a score of 5-0. It was 4-0 12 minutes into the game. And it absolutely just, it was as ugly as the score indicates as the Wild lose in 5 games to the Jets. In other NFL or NHL playoff games last night, the Flyers and the Avalanche both did what the Wild could not do last night, win on the road and force a Game 6. They were both down 3-1. The Flyers win in Pittsburgh by a score of 4-2. Colorado wins in Nashville by a score of 2-1. In the NBA last night, the Pacers were down 17 points to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They come back and beat them 92-91, and now they lead that series 2-1 over the Cleveland Cavaliers. In Washington last night, Washington got back into the series with a 122-103 win over Toronto, and the Raptors still hold a 2-1 lead in that series, but Washington makes a statement at home. Milwaukee does exactly the same thing, down 2-0. They beat the Celtics at home last night, 116-92. What's going on around the area today? Well, both the Bronco softball and the Little Fork Big Falls softball teams are heading out west to Badger Greenbush Middle River to participate in a tournament. They're both going to play about 11:30 this morning, and then they're going to play a pair of games after that. I'll try to keep Facebook updated as much as I can on those games today. Minnesota Timberwolves had their first home playoff game in 14 years as they take on Houston tonight. In Game 3, down 2-0. I know I didn't expect anything out of the Wolves. Let's hope maybe they can make a little whatever here tonight at home. That game starts at 6:30. In the other NBA games tonight, Philly at Miami at 1:30 this afternoon. The 76ers lead that series 2-1. Portland is at New Orleans at 4 o'clock. Portland, who would have ever thought this, down 3-0 in that series? They were I believe, the number 3 seeded team, just absolutely stunning. And then Oklahoma City, they take on Utah. That series tied at 1 o'clock. That game goes off at 9 o'clock tonight. In the NHL today, Columbus at Washington. Nobody's won a home game. This game's in Washington, so you got to give Columbus the edge. That series is tied at 2. New Jersey's at Tampa Bay, looking to stay in the series as the Lightning leads that series 3-1. And Boston looking to close out Toronto tonight at 7 o'clock as the Bruins lead 3-1. Tomorrow, the Minnesota United Loons in the MLS, they'll be out in Seattle for a 3 o'clock game. The Twins take on Tampa Bay in their series finale. That game starts at 12:10, pregame at 11:40. Our local Broncos all in action today with track and baseball. And, of course, they've been battling the spring weather as well. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk to a group of Hall of Famers that are going to be inducted into the Bronco Athletic Hall of Fame tonight. You don't want to miss it. Come on back. You're listening to Coach's Corner, live from Hardee's on K104 and online at rjbroadcasting.com. Welcome back to Coach's Corner. As the bantering and the barbs, I should say, are already being thrown. We've got the 62 hockey team. I got Glenn Blummer and Matt Donahue joining me. We've got Pete Fitchuk from graduated in 65. He brought Tony Kern as his wingman this morning, as he wanted to make sure he could match up those 62ers. Dick Ostrud, of course, longtime track coach and wrestling coach here and teacher in International Falls. And we got Jimmy Glowak all the way back from the 54 state championship football team. And we're going to talk to everybody here this morning. And guys, first of all, thanks for being here. Congratulations. It's a special weekend for you guys. It's a special weekend for me in the fact that I get to talk to you guys and I get to meet you guys and I get to hear about the stories. And Glenn, we had a chance to sit down way back in November before you headed back out to Idaho for the winter, and we had a chance to sit down and talk about this 62 hockey team, which, man, it was pretty doggone good.
You're very good. Lots of skilled players, a lot of dedication. Kind of set this tone, according to guys like Tim Sheehy, for the next 5-6 years. With a little bit of luck, International Falls could have been a champion from 61 all the way through 66.
Yeah, I know I had a chance to talk with Bernie Woods, and the game that kept coming up with him was the 61 championship game against Duluth East that turned into the melee. The brawl. You want to address that, Matt? You want to talk about the brawl at all?
Participate at all.
You didn't participate.
Totally deny it.
You
didn't hit anybody. Never did anything wrong.
Never looked at anybody the wrong way.
But I will tell you one thing about the brawl.
Yeah. And
this goes back to the coach. Okay, is that it was an interesting fourth period. Was that when we were out there swinging away? Yeah. Anyway, and of course they cleared the ice and we were all in the locker room. Coach Ross came in, made us go across to the other locker room and congratulate those guys. I thought, here comes another brawl.
Yeah.
we went over and congratulated them.
I'm kind of surprised that it didn't turn into more of that, but like I said, I had a chance to talk about that, and like you said, Glenn, it could have been a 61, maybe a through 66, quite a run there for those teams. Jimmy, you got something?
I got something to say. I didn't realize this had happened to this bunch in 62. When I was a senior in 54, the season of 54, we played Duluth East, and that game is yet to be ended. We were got in a big brawl like they're talking about, and with about 2.5 minutes left, and they just called the game. We all went off, went in our separate ways, and that's how that one ended. So this is a surprise to me. Yes, right. Again, this is unreal.
So what is it about Duluth East that brings out the worst there in both teams?
Don't overdo it. I met some good-looking women from there.
They're very arrogant.
They're very arrogant.
No.
So, Pete Fitchek, graduate of 65, and got to play in 3 state tournaments. We don't like to talk about the 63 tournament, but state runner-up, and then, of course, state championship in 64 and 65. Like I said, you asked me yesterday, can I bring Tony Kern on? What is it about your buddy Tony that this is how it is?
Well, Tony come all the way from East Coast to be here for Mike and me, so that tells you what it's about. But getting back to Duluth East, I have 2 stories for you. When we were in, I believe it was 7th grade, we were a Bantam, and they were called Lower Chester, but they were all Duluth East, and the tournament was in the old rink in Duluth, and we beat them, and so we were Bantam champions, and that kind of carried us through high school. And one footnote to when we were in 11th grade, we met in the region finals, and they beat us. But we both got to go to the state because of the back door.
Sure.
And who do we play the first game? 64, Duluth East, and we beat them, and then we went on to win the championship.
Always interesting about the back door. I know that was one of the things that was brought up, that when they did away with it, Northern Minnesota lost a team. Glenn, and it was something that the hockey was that good up here, Glenn.
In 61, we played Duluth East. at Fort Francis and beat them 3-2. It was quite a interesting game. It was packed house, standing room only type stuff. And then we went and played them in the region finals, and you're talking about the melee. Yeah. And Jimmy is right. They're very arrogant.
Tony, I'll let you jump in here. What do you remember about Pete? What's the number one thing that you remember about him as a hockey player?
Didn't back check.
Oh no, he back-checked. He was just a tremendous center. I was very fortunate to play with a lot of good, couple good centers, both in high school and in college. Dave Merhar, who played against us here in high school, again, they lost 3 games their senior year, and all 3 of those 3 games in the whole state. So, and those 3 games were to us. So I remind him of that every year. So
I can't believe
I'll see him tomorrow and remind him of it again.
I can't believe that you guys would do that.
But Pete was the other person that I centered with since I was about, I don't know, fifth grade, fourth grade, and there's nobody who can, as far as I'm concerned, can pass the buck like he does. So he is special. We also beat Duluth East that year that Pete was talking about. During the season, we beat them 3-2. So the rubber match was in the state tournament in the quarterfinals, and Marshall Sather scored the winning goal for us. So
that's awesome, Dick. I want to get you in here.
I got a Peter Fitchuk story.
Let her rip. Yeah.
Okay. I had never met the guy. I'd heard of him. I'm coaching down in Canby, southwestern Minnesota. I'm riding a wrestling bus back from Hutchinson to Canby at night. They had just won the state tournament. And so I don't know if it's WCCO radio or radio station. They're interviewing Pete. He's a high school senior. And the announcer says, did you play exceptionally good hockey in the state tournament? And Peter says, oh, I don't think so. I mean, we played our hockey like we always do. Then he started thinking, oh, that doesn't sound so good. And he started backtracking, but we have a lot of respect for these teams. And I thought, well, that's pretty nice. A high school kid realized, oh, I don't want to sound arrogant. You know, that was Peter. I'd never met you. I just read about you in papers. And that was a long time ago.
That's a long time ago. You mentioned you started in Canby, Dick, and then, well, I guess maybe one question that I have, how do you end up in International Falls in 1968?
Well, we decided we wanted to get back up north.
Yeah.
I grew up in Hibbing.
Right.
And I sent out just letters of inquiry to Hibbing, International Falls, Grand Rapids, maybe Bemidji. I don't remember all the schools. And the day they got the letter up here, they called me at Canby High School. And their first thing was, you grew up in Hibbing. You're not afraid of the long winters up here. And that kind of cinched it.
Cinched it right there,
if
yeah,
you can
absolutely.
stand the winter, you got the job.
Well, there you go. That definitely is one of it. And you went on to coach wrestling as an assistant coach and as a head coach here in the Falls. And then, of course, you were head track and field coach.
That's right, track and field coach. Don't forget the field event.
We're gonna talk about that tonight a little bit more at the ceremony. But 22 seasons as head coach. Lots of section lots of region as they were called at that time, and some sections at the end. Is there maybe one of those seasons, one of those teams that maybe stick out above the rest?
Well, I guess the one that sticks out above the rest, we got beat by 1 point in the region championship. But that was my first year as head coach.
Okay.
And I think some of those 73 grads are going to be here tonight. And all year we're chasing Grand Rapids. The day before the IRC meet, we're catching them, by the way, every meet's closer. A kid from Rapids becomes eligible. He was a transfer student. In the section or the region meet, he wins a long jump and he wins a high jump. They beat us by 1 point. Well, if they hadn't imported this ringer, we would have had him.
Those dirty buggers.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't get him out of Fort Francis.
Let's open things up, huh? You wouldn't know anything about that, Matt, would you? About bringing in a ringer from? No.
I'm not guilty.
You're not guilty. You don't know anything.
Our farm was right on the Canadian border, but we didn't let them across there.
There you go.
We had immigration control.
Exactly. Jimmy, the 54 football team, you guys ran a heck of a season. You guys go 8-0. I think if I remember right, the average score was like 37 to like 13 or 10 or something like that.
That's right, Tim. There was only one game that starting 11 played almost the full game. That was against Grand Rapids. And other than that, when it came time to get letters, the rumor was going around that the varsity was not going to get any letters, the first team, because they didn't play enough. The second and third team played most of the time, and they got all the time. So, yeah, it was a beautiful game. I mean, a beautiful bunch of guys. And
so you were the quarterback of that team, and
Correct.
you got to call the plays, right?
yes, sir, I sure did.
So didn't you start thinking maybe we should start pulling back on the reins a little bit so we could play a little longer? That never
entered my mind. We were just too happy playing the way we were, and just go. I give the ball to Jim, and he take off, go around then, or up the middle and score. Joe's, Larry, the same thing. They just all over the place. And then if we needed it, we threw a pass. We were not a real passing team, but we had the pass, and it worked. And we only used it when we needed it, to be honest.
Phil Johnson, put out the season of 54, the season of 55. Phil, a member of those teams, and I had a chance this week to reread parts of that story, and he talked about that Grand Rapids game and how formidable of an opponent they were and how close it was. And then you guys absolutely turned it on in the second half. Was it one of those things that you guys could always maybe find that extra switch to turn things on and really make things happen?
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of pride, and the guys were really good. And we'd get in the huddle, and I'd say, okay, guys, we can do better than this. At the halftime, Coach told us, we waited for him to come in while we were resting, and he never came. All of a sudden, he walks in just before it was time to go out on the field, and he says, okay, girls, let's go get them. Well, you never saw a bunch of guys get up and take off. We just flew out that door, and I led the team out, of course, and I went through the door, and it opened up to the fans coming in, and I hit that door, and it just went flying. Thank God nobody was coming down that walkway. And we got on that field, and we just took the game over.
Did the booing help you?
Not the booing, coach, saying, okay, girls, that's all it took.
That's all it took.
He was a hell of a coach, and he knew how to get you guys, get us going, and get our attention, and he did.
Now, you guys, you young bucks here, compared to Jimmy, don't take that the wrong way, but that was really the first state tournament team. Not the first, but one of the first teams, and they won that state championship. You guys were probably, maybe 10, 6, 8, 9, 10 years old? What do you guys remember anything about, Matt? Do you remember anything about that?
Leather helmets.
They wore the leather helmets? Yeah?
No. We were 8 years old out on the farm. We didn't even have a TV or a radio.
Sure. And you never came in for those games? How about you, Pete? Did you? That wasn't...
I think we were at the 11th Street rink playing hockey.
Even though there wasn't any ice, we were still out there playing hockey, right?
Well, we played ball hockey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boot hockey.
How about for you, Glenn? You remember anything about that team?
I actually was being groomed in Roseau.
Oh, that's right.
And
I forgot about that.
Jim and I were just talking about that. Jim's family and my family go way, way back to probably the 30s, and where his dad and my father were buddies for many, many, many years.
Sure.
And so then the circumstances, I ended up in Roseau.
That's
where
right.
Actually, I learned to play hockey, and then I was imported.
They're another one of those imports, see?
But Jim and my brother are the same age. Jim and my brother are the same age, and so they competed against each other in football and hockey, and so I was cheering for Roseau.
Sure. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk some more to the Hall of Famers in our next segment. Stay tuned. You're listening to Coach's Corner, live from Hardee's on K104 and online at rjbroadcasting.com. Welcome back to Coach's Corner for our next segment, and I'm not sure how long that commercial set was, but it went flying by because the stories obviously continued, and you didn't get a chance to hear those, but we got to talk a little bit about Bronco football in the mid-'60s and those kinds of things. Jim, I'll start with you. You talked about the Grand Rapids game, but what's your best memory of being a Bronco? Because you also were a hockey player, you also were a part of the baseball team. What's the best memory that you have of being a Bronco? Is there one game, one play, one thing that when you think about playing high school sports for International Falls kinds of sticks out in your mind?
I would probably say there's probably two.
Okay.
It was in our junior year. We started the season at 0-2. And for the third game, Coach did a couple tweaks, and I was one of the tweaks. I went in at quarterback, and we were winning 16-0 going into the fourth quarter. And Coach sent in a play, sent Jim Crotty in with a pass play. So we called it, I threw the pass, and Jimmy caught it for a long gain and a touchdown. We ended up winning the game 20-0. The next game we played Evelyn, and our second series of downs, again I called a pass play, and it was to Joe Crotty this time. Joe caught it, and we made the touchdown, and Paul Stormo kicked the extra point, and we won the game 7-6. It went from the first quarter on 7-6. It was just one heck of a defensive battle, and Paul Stormo made the kick, and it was the only kick he made all year. So, otherwise, we passed for him or ran for him. We stayed away from the kick.
Well, I can understand that. Well, Tony, you got the microphone in your hand. You give me one memory from your high school days. What one maybe sticks out because, well, a couple of state hockey championships, I mean, got to be right up there. But maybe there's another game that kind of sticks out that makes you think about being a Bronco.
Well, I think the state championship, that Johnson team in 1963 when we lost to them, we had Jim Amadon and we were undefeated at that particular point in time, and they came through the back door in Minneapolis and they beat us in that overtime game 4-3. And then we got next year we ended up playing them again in the state championship, and we, as we talked about earlier, we came through the back door to Duluth East and played them, and they were undefeated at that particular point in time. Not only undefeated, but when they came into the state tournament and we played them in that championship game, they had not been scored upon in the regional and the state tournament.
Wow.
Until they ran into Peter. And then Peter lit them up for 2 goals after getting knocked around in the Richfield game.
Yeah.
And he scored another one later for the hat trick. So they hadn't. We scored 7 goals against them and beat them 7-3, and they hadn't had a goal scored on them that whole time.
Wow.
So that had to be the moment for me.
Pete, how about for you? That's a pretty good memory. Maybe tough to overcome, but is it the same or is there a different one?
Well, it's really tough. There was so many of them. I tell you, on that team, I'll just use the 65 team, getting elected to the Hall of Fame was probably my best memory.
Yeah.
So in that, we got to see people almost 50 years later, and we still were a group. I wish we could have put the skates on and had a little game.
Sure. Well, that's the one thing that I've noticed, and I'll ask the question this way, and we're going to get back to these best memories. You guys, when I talk to you guys talk about these games like they were yesterday. Like they just happened. They're so fresh and so vivid in your memory. And I'll ask you the question this way. Is it because you guys were state champions, because you guys had such great seasons? Or is it something else? Is it just it was so special of a time to play with your buddies? Because that's what I hear all the time, especially with these hockey teams. We were buddies from the time we grew up, and we were out every night playing hockey. Is it that, or do you remember everything because you guys were so successful?
Well, being in a small town, we grew up as a family, I believe, and Matt and I were talking about it last night. What made these teams good, I think, was the practices. They were more they were tougher than the games.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe Matt can expound on that too. We were talking. I remember when we were sophomores, I had to face Jim Amidon, and you know, the guys that are older, they don't back off on you.
Yeah.
It's tough. And then when we were seniors, well, we had Tim Sheehy line, and boy, I mean, they were very good and tough too. But so we only played 28 games going all the way to state, but if you add up some practices,
Yeah.
that added to that.
Does anybody want to add to that thought about what it was about the teams, about the guys?
Tim and I have talked about this a few times, but talk about instances that happened in our life that took up less than a second. Less than a second, and you remember them.
Yeah.
You know, and there was one in my career. I played with Jimmy and Glenn, and Ross made it real clear that you're the boy to go in the corner. You know, you can teach Tony how to do it. You know. Anyway, but that was, and I played with two great hockey players. So I mean, hey, you know, I was the guy that came along to get the puck out in front. So I did my job. I did it pretty well. But we were playing one game and came down, and Rossi used to say to me, dig the puck out, 2 steps, Matt, and pass the puck. Pass the puck, Matt, you know. So he really emphasized that. You know, I said, all right. So I came out, put it on Jimmy's stick, hustled down the left side. Blummer goes down the right side. Jimmy puts it on Glenn's stick. Glenn got in a little deep on the goaltender. He lost the angle on the net, and he passed behind the goaltender, right across an open net. And I missed the pass. But I was left-handed, and I had to go all the way over my right side. But it's taken me 56 years to figure out what the problem was with that. And they've always picked on me about it, but I figured it out now. It just was a lousy pass.
That's it. Wasn't your fault. Could not have been. How about for you, Glenn? You got one memory that kind of.
That's right. We've always kept Matt humble with that. We reminded him of that, and he's not really being totally honest because the goaltender was no place around. We had Deke the goalie, and he was standing there. I thought, in those days, you wouldn't get 2 assists unless you actually touched the puck. Well, we actually overpassed a lot on our lane, and so I thought, well, we'll get up three points on this one. So I passed it to Matt. He was standing there so shocked, and I've never been chewed out for giving someone a pass.
Jimmy, what do you?
I got one on the fall on our 54 championship team. We got, you know, the season began, we were really going, we were looking forward to it. We were all dedicated to winning because we'd come through the last season, a 6-2 record, won the IRC conference. So we were looking forward to the first scrimmage of the year on Saturday. We all got there and we were all really good, ready to roll, ready to get out there. We got out in the field, we got the ball, we started, we ran 2 plays, and on the second play, one of our ball players got hurt. He's laying on the ground, just laying there, motionless. And the coaches are all around him. We got together, we looked around, and we finally said, I walked up to the coach and said, hey coach, get him off the field. We want to play. We're here for this. This is why we came out. And the coach kind of looked at us, and he looked at the whole bunch of us, and looked in our eyes. Somebody asked him. So he said, well, practice is over. He blew his whistle. That's it. And my dad and Jim Crotty's and Joe Crotty's dads were there. And I think Bronco was there also, senior. And they went up to him and said, why, Coach, why did you call a practice? He said, because, he says, I looked in those guys' eyes, and he said, what I saw was a fire that wouldn't be put out. And I figured I wouldn't have just the one guy down there, but I'd have the whole damn team if we kept practicing. And we never scrimmaged again after that. And the player that was down was Gene Cheldred. Sorry, Gene, but I had to tell that one.
All right, Dick. We're both non-Broncos. We're true imports because we didn't grow up here. Is there a memory for you if it's a Bronco one, that's great. But maybe you got one from being a Blue Jacket.
Well, yeah, I was a Blue Jacket, and we had track and field. I was a track athlete, distance runner. We had a very good team in the spring of '58. Falls program was going pretty strong. They came down to Hibbing for a duel. We beat them pretty soundly that day. We won the IRC. We won an invitational down at UMD. I think Falls might have been second. Come region time, Falls beat us. Guys like Greg Olson, Bobby Bateman, Stan Luizo. Oh, they were good, and I scored exactly 0 points that day. So I did not help our cause, but yeah, we lost to I-Falls in the region championship, and now here I am all these years. I was Bronco head coach.
Well, you know the scary part about these things. I asked you guys for your best memory. You guys talked about some stuff that were maybe not the best stories, but you guys remember those things. Those are the ones that sometimes stick out in your brain. I'll stay with you, Dick, as long as you've got that. Obviously, you were wrestling. You were a track and field coach. Is there again a meet or maybe an athlete that kind of sticks out in your mind that kind of just what was a special moment for you in your career?
Well, I'm going to refer to this tonight again too. That state track and field meet when it was at the Sports Center in Blaine. This would have been the late '90s one time, and there were 7 former track and field athletes I had coached that were coaches that had athletes in the state meet. One of them was a Canby kid, 6 former Bronco track and field coaches that were coaching state entrants that did very well. And I thought, wow, that, talk about what, a legacy or leaving a mark or,
Yeah, I agree. And of course, obviously you've, after you left the Falls in '94, you continued coaching, but maybe more so being a starter at so many track and field meets, cross country meets, being official at wrestling meets, etc. Well, you don't have to give your age, but I'm guessing you said you graduated in '58, so I can do the math.
Do the math.
But you still have.
I was only 7 when I graduated. I was a very bright kid.
You were very, very bright. But but you haven't slowed down.
That's kind of fun. I'm still in the game.
You're still in the game?
In fact, yesterday we were going into the coffee house, where Rauscher's old market there, and Bob Mason stops the truck and he says, "Hey, you want to come and start our meet here next Tuesday?" Yeah. So next Tuesday I'll be back in Bronco land starting the track and field meet out.
I know we were setting up the camera the other day, and somebody said, or Jen I think said, "Well, who's going to be the starter to Paul Jelly, the 2 head coaches?" And they were like debating which one of them was going to be the meet starter. So I'm glad they got you there so that we can so that the coaches can coach and you can do your best thing there and getting the meet started and keep things rolling.
Keep things rolling. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the name of the game.
Glenn, go ahead. What?
I got one other thing. The fans of International Falls are really, really intense. And when we played, you better play well because otherwise you heard about it. And one of my favorite memories is we were playing in the regional semifinals in 1962, and we were playing in a new arena in Virginia, and we were anticipating playing Evelyn for the 5th time, and they were the only ones that actually tied us that year.
Yeah.
But Hibbing beat them in the region quarterfinals. So we were playing Hibbing in Virginia, and they had a guy by the name of Gary Gambucci who was played at the U. Was really a good hockey player. He was a sophomore. Anyway. The score with about 9 minutes gone in the first period was 0-0, and I was for some reason kind of late coming back, and Jimmy got a breakout pass, and I yelled at him. I turned around, and he gave me a pass, and I had a one-on-one with but I had a full head of steam. He hit me with a perfect pass. Had a full head of steam, blocked the defenseman out, and put a backhand up in the corner. Beautiful goal. I'll pat myself on the back. But here's the memory. My sister was up in the stands with her husband and kids in the stand. This is, again, standing room only. And she got so excited there was a gentleman sitting in front of her with a fedora on, and she drove that fedora right down over the guy's face. It was a cartoon character. And she explained this to me, well, actually her husband explained it to me, and I have laughed and teased her about that ever since. So that's intensity of the fans, that's the point I was making.
Matty, go ahead.
When you're on fans, as we say, certain things stick in your head. We had one tie.
Yeah.
It was 4-4. I believe it was Evelyn that tied us. Anyway, but I came in a farm boy, so I didn't get the newspaper for 3 days later than you guys did in town. Yeah. But anyway, I open up the pages, and I go to the sports page right away to read this, and I'll never forget this if I get to be 185 years old. Broncos disappoint fans.
Wow.
One tie in 26.
That's the way it was, right, Pete?
I have a story about Coach Ross. Tony and I got invited to a private meeting with Coach Ross.
Jeez. Oh, boy.
And what it was about, 12-minute periods, we didn't feel we were getting enough ice time. and why Keith wasn't invited, I don't know, but after that, we decided we're getting a lot of ice time. He straightened us out in a hurry.
Yeah? You mean like in practice you were going to get a lot of ice time or otherwise? Tony?
Well, no, we wanted more ice time out on the ice in the game, but to elaborate on that a little bit, this is another part about Coach Ross. Well, Pete and I went in there, and he wanted to know why we were pouting and all that stuff. But anyway, the real reason was, just like they had competition, we had competition with the Sheehy line, and Eklund was a senior captain of the team, so we felt that, but we were doing most of the scoring, so we felt we needed to be first, right? So anyway, Coach Ross, next game, we look at the start of the game when they get ready to drop the puck. Our line's in the box. Sheehy's line's in the box.
Ooh.
And Cronkite's line is starting.
Okay.
So that's how Coach Ross handled those kind of things. He said, hey, we're going to let you guys know that you're not the only two lines. We got a third line. And that's what he did.
And that's what he did. Well, you guys all had Coach Ross minus Dick. What was his biggest strength? Was it did he the X's and O's? Was it the motivation? Was it what was it about Coach Ross that made him the great coach that he was?
My opinion, and it formulated based on the 1972 team, was he took. They had some really good players, but they had a lot of players that were good high school hockey players, but not, Division I, these guys. And he took and mixed them up, and he really formulated a championship team with that. So in my opinion, his strength was putting players together. I mean, he put Matt and I, Jimmy together. He put Huffer and Bobby John and Toms together. And what it taught me, after coaching for many years myself, was that you can't have too many players on the team that do the same, or the line that do the same thing. And Matt has a great story, and I'd like him to tell it about after he scored a hat trick.
Oh boy! I know you can't see it on the radio, but I can see it. The eyes went. Oh boy! He's like, okay.
Well, anyway, we beat Virginia 10-2. Anyway, and I'm playing with these guys, and you see the stuff on the wall tonight. Amadon gets 5 in the game, right? Blummer gets 4 in the game. Matt gets a lot of assists, which I was willing to put up with. But when you get back to dealing with Ross and some of the things that he did, we come off the ice and we beat these guys 10-2. And I happen to have a friend of mine that was on that team later in life, and I used to always call him, he'd say, wow, we really had you guys. They had us down by 1 goal going into the second period. And he said the locker room was going crazy. We were unbeaten. You were going to take out the heroes and stuff like this. Well, anyway, we scored 12 goals in 24 minutes later. So we really hammered them.
Yeah.
And so I go to a lot of hockey games with this guy before he finally says to me, Matt, I got to tell you a story. And I'm not going to tell the rest of the story because it's got something to do with Diane, with the song. But anyway, no, that's because that's your thing anyway. So anyway, he gets through telling me the story about, losing 10-2. And he gets through and I said, I got a hat trick on you. Only hat trick of my life, but I got a hat trick on you. God, he goes crazy. But the hat trick, when we, all these scores going on and we come off and I expected, that I've been digging corners for 4 or 5 years, and I thought somebody would say, great job. Not one guy. Not one guy. Huffer comes in with 5 and Thompson comes in with 4 and, nobody says anything to me, so I'm stalling a little bit in the locker room to see if somebody might acknowledge the fact I got a hat trick, right? Nobody says a thing. In comes Ross, stands in the doorway, and I always liked this about Ross because he sort of analyzed everything. I spent about 18 months on a part-time basis working with him, and I really got to know. But anyway, and I'm sitting there, so I'm kind of half undressed. I got my shin pads on. Nobody's saying anything else, and everybody's peeling out of the room. He comes over, and he sits down beside me, and he doesn't say a thing. He doesn't get into any lot of words or anything else like this. And he takes a hockey stick, and he's banging on my shin pads. And he said, Matt, on anybody else's team, you'd probably be a hero. Around here, you just carry the damn water bucket.
If I got time here, I'd like one more Ross story.
Absolutely.
Fantastic as far as I'm concerned. I played for Larry as a senior. It was his first year as coach here in the Falls. And when we were out there practicing and he was ready to make up his lines, he pulls me aside along the board. Jim, come here. Just like with Matt or something. And when I walked over there and he said, skated over and he said to me, he says, Jim, he says, I'm using my mind here and I'm trying to figure out how to set up lines. And he says, I'd like to have you play with David Frank and Oscar Malley. They're sophomores. They got they're great players, but they play shitty hockey out here. They go chase the pucks all over. They're not any rhyme or reason what they're doing. He says, you are a senior. You have game experience, not only in hockey, but football. And he said, I would like to have you be on that line and help those guys, kind of show them how to play organized hockey, how to play position hockey. That's right, Matt. Thank you. And so I said, well, sure. I said, but I want you to know one thing, Coach. I'll do it, but if I'm not doing the job, don't be afraid to take me off the line. And he kind of looked at me, and that look of his he gives, that smile, that smirk, whatever you want to call it. And anyway, I must have done all right because both of them went on and had great careers. Oscar is a member of the Hall, and David Frank was one of the best centers you'll ever see. He skated kind of funny, but he was one hell of a hockey player. So I was very proud to be able to play with those guys because I had grown up with them. I was a neighbor, and we used to play on the outdoor rinks all the time, take our equipment with sleds and toboggans and all that, go to the ice park. So I said, hey, this is great. I get to play with my buddies. So, yeah, that was Ross. I mean, he analyzed everything, and he brought the team members into the picture as well. Yeah. He told them, he explained to them. He didn't have to, but he explained to everybody why he was doing it. And that I think is why everybody liked Ross as a coach. Same as Frank Larson. He was the same way.
Oh, yeah. Oscar Malley told me that David Frank was the only guy that could ever skate with him. Ever.
Wow.
In all the hockey he played, he said David was the only one that could play with me. I mean, keep up to him.
Sure. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Pete?
Just to add to that, when we played, he showed us set plays in hockey. I mean, that was almost unheard of. Like when we face off in the other end, we'd put a wing break into the other end, and if I got the face off, I'd shoot it up there, and we'd have a breakaway.
Sure.
And we had a lot of set plays like that. And then being able to play with the same people the whole time, it made all of us better.
Sure.
And he left us like that. And he could set lines. There's no question.
Yeah. Dick, you grabbed the microphone. Did you have something? Or you just
handed it off to me.
I wasn't looking. All of a sudden you had it, and I thought maybe you had something to add.
He wanted to join the 62 team.
Hey, who doesn't want to be part of the 62
I'm the
team?
only non-hockey player here. I'm really outnumbered.
Well,
Kind of intimidating. Yeah. I'll learn, hey?
Guys, I know we could chat all morning and most of the afternoon, but I do want to thank you guys for being here this morning. Congratulations, and to me, I get to do this Coach's Corner show 30 plus times a year. This is by far my favorite, even though I get to talk with the kids and the coaches the other week. This is great time for me because for me, not growing up here in the Falls, to get to hear about these stories, and even if they're slightly embellished, they're still great stories. So Glenn Blummer, Tony Kern, Pete Fitchuk, Dick Ostrud, Matt Donahue, Jim Glowak, thanks for being here, guys, and I hope this day is as special as it is for you, for me, as it is for you guys. And thanks for being here. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and we'll wrap up Coach's Corner. You're listening live on K104 and online at rjbroadcasting.com. Welcome back to Coach's Corner for our final segment. The stories continue here. It's awesome. Let's talk about the week that was. Let's wrap up the show like we always do. It was, of course, a very slow week due to the weather, but the Bronco girls softball team did get their season opened on Thursday with a home game against Greenway. The Falls fell behind 2-0 after 4 innings. They actually gave up a first inning home run and then an unearned run off of pitcher Mariah Leahy in the 4th inning. As she struck out 9 in the game, only gave up 2 hits. It was 2 runs that were maybe the scary part. The Broncos were able to put 3 runs together in the bottom of the 5th inning as Carrie Myers led off with a double, followed by a single by Amber Thielander, a ground out, and then a double by Janet Humbert. A couple of more ground outs gave the Broncos the 3 runs, and they win by a final score of 3-2 over Greenway. Again, the Bronco girls and also the Viking girls out in western Minnesota at Badger Greenbush Middle River this weekend for a tournament, actually just for today, as they will get started at about 11:30 this morning. The Rainy River baseball team finally got some games played in northern Minnesota. They went down to Superior on Thursday. They got to play Hibbing Community College. They won the first game 16-5. Keanu Calamayan had a 2-run home run. I believe he went 3 for 3 with 5 runs scored. Luis Rodriguez also had a 3-run home run. Brandon Holbert, a grand slam in that game. Kevin Alisea, the staff ace, got the win on the mound. In game 2, the Voyagers won 10-7. Alisea went to the DH role, I believe, and had a pair of doubles. Jamie Wick was 2 for 3 as Tristan Lawrence picked up the win on the mound. What's going on locally today? I already mentioned that the softball teams are out in western Minnesota. That's really the only local thing going on today. Tomorrow, the Rainy River baseball team is going to be playing Mesabi at 10 a.m. In Proctor. If I've got my numbers right, I think I put that right. I better go back in and check here on a text message if I can and make sure that game is not today. It is Sunday. Tomorrow we're at 10 o'clock down in Proctor. On Monday, there's still a Bronco baseball game scheduled at War Road. We'll see if the Broncos can get their baseball season underway on Monday, Tuesday. Absolutely crazy day. Home track and field meet going on with many area teams. Head coach Jen Erickson told me, hey, we could have more teams than we even had planned on, so this could be a very big meet. Looking forward to it. The I-Falls baseball team could have their home opener on Tuesday as they would be hosting Evelyn Gilbert. The Bronco softball team is scheduled to be at Hibbing, and the Viking softball team is at home against MIB. On Wednesday, the Little Fork Big Falls softball team will be home against Northwoods. That game is a rescheduled game, and the Rainy River baseball team will be at home against Hibbing for a doubleheader at 2 o'clock. On Thursday, the LBF softball team, they'll be at home against Lake of the Woods at 1 o'clock. I'm sure that's part of some crazy triple header somehow along the way. And the Bronco track and field team will be at War Road for a 4 o'clock meet. On Friday the 27th, hopefully the Bronco boys golf team is going to get their season underway. They're supposed to be down in the Grand Rapids area for a 2-day tournament, the Grand Slam invite. Hopefully they'll get that underway. The Bronco baseball team is supposed to be at Hermantown on Friday. Next Saturday, the LBF softball team, they'll be in Cherry for a 1 o'clock game, and the Rainy River baseball team will be at home to take on Itasca at 1 o'clock in a double header. That's going to wrap it up here. Thanks to Chad back at the station for getting us on the air. Thanks to all my guests here. Again, Pete Fitchuk, Tony Kern, Jimmy Glowak, Matt Kern, Glenn Blummer, and Dick Ostrud for joining me here this morning. Thanks to the staff here at Hardee's for taking care of our guests. But most of all, thank you for listening to this very special Coach's Corner, live from Hardee's on K104 and online at rjbroadcasting.com.